I'd like to welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting, October the 3rd. We are beginning this evening at 4:30, our public session. We're holding today's meeting at the Dennett Road Educational Complex. There is no public comment. We will be leaving here shortly to go into executive session, and we should return again promptly at 6 p.m. Under Section 3-305B of the General Provisions Article of the Maryland Annotated Code, there's one reason the board will go into closed session this evening: to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction. Any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. Specifically, the topic tonight will be 3-305B1, topic including certificated staffing recommendation. The reason this topic will be discussed in closed session instead of open session is as follows. The personnel topic pursuant to 3-305B1 disclosed above will be considered in closed session rather than open session because they include a discussion of specific employees, which is confidential employment matter. Hearing all of that, are there any objections by board members of going into executive session? Hearing none, there's a motion to do so.
So moved.
So moved by Jason.
Second.
Second by Rodney. Discussion? Those in favor of going into executive session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And we are in executive session. Welcome everyone to our October regularly scheduled board member on October 3rd. We are starting this evening a little later than normal, 6 o'clock. Well, actually, we're doing this one at 6 o'clock, which is normal. We went out before the meeting started today and visited Southern High School, saw the new improvements at Southern, and we were all extremely impressed with what we saw there. With that being said, I do want to mention that one of our board members, Mr. Moore, is unable to be here this evening, and so there'll only be the four of us elected board members in tonight's meeting. But I ask that you would please stand for a moment of silence to be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance, led by our board member who is our student from Southern High School. States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Jason, second by Rodney. Discussion? Those in favor of the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the agenda is approved. Take a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Sadie,
Second.
second by Rodney. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And we remind everyone that the closed session summaries, announcements, any policy procedures that might be enacted can be found on our website. We certainly encourage you to go to the website to look at those things. Our first order of business is FY 2024-25 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan is a draft, and I think the superintendent's going to present that to us.
Good evening. I am presenting this tonight because Mr. Wasilowski was not able to be here. I'm not going to go through the entire document. You know, next month he will be bringing this back for action. But I will highlight a few pages. If you go to page 5, are we on the comprehensive maintenance plan?
Mm-hmm.
Not the CIP?
Comprehensive maintenance.
Thank you. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Having them both on the agenda can be confusing to many of us. Anyway, the purpose of this plan is stated on page 5, which is to yearly update our plans for developing, maintaining, and improving all of the facilities here in the Garrett County Schools. And I know the board board members are used to seeing this plan each year. I would ask you to go to page 11. Again, just trying to highlight some of the pages that Rich and I had really looked at a little bit more in depth. On page 11, you can see the review of our facilities, showing that all of our facilities that we're offering to our public are either in good or very good status as we look at the assessment. When you read through the challenges, I don't know about you as board members, but when I read through them, I was a little, but those are noted as Rich's typical challenges as we try to maintain our buildings to the highest level. On page 12, you'll see our short-term and long-term goals. And I would point out under long-term goals, the first goal that is very important to all of us is to maintain and optimize all of our school facilities. The short-term goals have to do with more day-to-day operations and keeping up with what we need to do to keep our schools safe and working for our students. On page 15, we'll get into the CIP in just a couple minutes, but it will give the board or members of the public the estimated cost for different projects that we're taking on during the fiscal year 2025 and beyond, because certainly you'll see the Southern Middle Broadford renovation that's going to take 1.5 years projected, but we're looking at that through fiscal year 25, and it'll go into fiscal year 26. It's a good bit of money, funding that is provided by the state and our local government to maintain our buildings to that good and very good level. I would ask that if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Or this will be back to you next month for an action item. And in the meantime, if you have questions that I'm unable to answer, we will filter those to Mr. Wesolowski.
Questions? I just have a couple of things for clarifications. They're not questions and they're not items for decisions, other than I think it's important that publicly we clarify a couple of things. The first one is on page 23. It has to do with the installation of stadium bleachers at Southern High School. We had a discussion, I think, previous to this year, and perhaps even before you became the superintendent. We had talked about reconfiguring the bleachers that are on the grass field, the old football field, reconfiguring those bleachers and moving them down to the new field. And I know I know there was a problem with the building and the capacity of the stadium. I remember those discussions as well. And certainly it's not something that would happen this year, but I would say that having attended the last 2 football games, I get asked that question a lot. When are you going to have bleachers on the visitor side? I came to watch this game and you don't have bleachers. So I don't know that I'm in favor of spending $247,000 for new bleachers. I think we should reconfigure the bleachers that are up there. I think there's probably a method to do that beyond my expertise and bring them down, because they're not used, as I understand it, much at all, if at all, on the grass field. So moving forward, I think that's something we need to look at for next fall year, is trying to get those down there.
I can share with you my understanding at this point, because we have talked about being able to do that. we need a little bit more time to look at that, whether or not it is really cost effective to move the current bleachers. There are some problems with moving them, and also being sure that they're ADA compliant. So that's not off the table, but it's not in this fiscal year's
Sure, I
plan.
understand.
Sure.
I just think people were of the understanding that something was going to happen with those bleachers moving down
And my hope is that could still be
sure.
accomplished. But I have less hope in that direction than I did 6 months ago.
Well-
So we'll continue to look at that.
The other one that I had is just a wondering, I guess, is on page 24. As we moved the 7th and 8th graders to Southern High School, we didn't increase custodial staffing. It stayed at 7. It was 7 before. It looks like it was 7 now. I guess my concern is we've added a lot of cleaning, because the area that they're now, the 7th and 8th graders are in, the upper floor was sealed off. It was never cleaned. It was closed. So now all of a sudden we're cleaning those areas. So I would think that moving, and of course it's an assessment by Mr. Wazlowski and his staff and principal of the school, but it would seem if we've added that much more space to that building that's being used every day, we ought to think about, do we need another person as well?
I can tell you, what I can tell you is that there is a formula that we use in the amount of square footage and how many staff people it takes to take care of that. Right now, I have not been given any indication that that formula isn't effective at Southern High School, but certainly if we find it isn't, we made another adjustment at another school, we would be looking at adjusting if we felt we needed to.
Yeah, but it would just, I guess, assume that if we added that many more square footage, we either added a lot to somebody's job, or things won't get cleaned as well as they should be cleaned, or we might need another person. So that's your all's
Yep.
decision, but that's the
Yes.
only thing that I saw.
Yes. Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone? Okay, let's move along then. We now have the capital improvement plan, which is an action item, and the superintendent will also make that presentation and make a recommendation to us.
And again, I should thank the board for having me sort of step in for this role tonight. Unfortunately, other members of our staff could not be here. But you've had the CIP for a month. There were some minor changes maybe from what you saw last month. We have updated the renovation costs. Those were not, for some reason, last month we missed that, and those were left blank on your paper. But we have those estimated costs on this paper. The looking down through, you'll see that we have on the CIP some possible limited renovations for the northern end of the county. Those are in there. One can consider them placeholders at this point because no decision has been made. But it gives the IAC, it gives all of us the possible plans for the system, because you'll also see as you look in to the CIP that doing some work at Accident School is also included in the CIP as a forecast of work that may need to happen as we go forward. The CIP gives the state an idea of where it is, what all our possibilities are in the county, and as you know, it is updated each year. So with that being said, I will make my recommendation, and certainly we'll go from there. So my recommendation is to approve the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan as was presented to you last month.
Okay, the superintendent's made a recommendation that the board approve the FY 2025 capital improvement plan as presented to us. Is there a motion as such? Moved by Mr. Gladfelty. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the CIP then will be tabled for the next meeting. And I know we have to have that in to the commissioners by what, November 15th or something like that?
I think it has to be to the state
End of November.
earlier than that, but okay, thank you.
Virtual Learning Day plan is an action item. Dr. Miller will make that recommendation.
Good evening. So in your materials, in board docs, you will see a couple documents, one of which is the virtual learning plan that was presented at the last meeting for a first read. And then you will also see direct feedback from our community that we received during the public comment period between last month and this month. And then Mr. Green helped us out in doing a summary of that feedback, and that is also provided so that you can kind of aggregate what those comments mean when you think about people that are in favor of the plan and people who are against. What I would like to do is just remind the board, but also the community, of a few things in relationship to the law that has passed that changed how we navigate virtual learning moving forward. One of which is that virtual learning in Maryland, in line with the law, is really only able to be used when it comes to inclement weather. That hasn't always been the case, but it is the case now. There's also no provision for any type of asynchronous only virtual learning. We have to have 4 hours of synchronous learning in the plan. The other major difference from the past is that we do have to, by law, utilize the makeup days for inclement weather that are in our approved calendar before we can institute virtual learning. Because some of the comments weren't not everybody was quite clear on those provisions of the law, I just felt the need to just share those pieces again, just to remind everybody of those important factors that really influenced the plan. So I'll let Dr. McCartney make the motion or the recommendation, and then I'll answer any questions if that's okay. Yeah.
So, board, my recommendation is to approve the virtual learning day plan for this current school year 24-25 as presented by Dr. Miller.
Superintendent has made a recommendation that the board approve the virtual learning day plan as presented to us by Dr. Miller. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Jason.
Second.
Seconded by Sadie. Discussion and questions. Any discussion or questions? Rodney?
I just I just want to thank the people that actually took the time to give us comments. I thought they were very good, something to consider. But and it was probably pretty evenly divided between the people
It
that were in
was.
favor of the plan and people that were opposed to the plan. But whether you're in favor or you're opposed, there were some really good comments in there that we need to consider at some point.
Yes, and thank you for that brief summary, because it was a little bit of both when you look at that summary.
But we have to get it into the state as quick as possible. We
We-
could get snow tomorrow.
We do not have to submit this to the state for clarification. In the past, we have. But with the new legislation that passed, we do not submit this to the state at this time. Really, we have to present it to our board. We have to give you all opportunity to review it and ask questions and contribute to it. It has to, we have to have an opportunity for public feedback. And we've done those things. And then ultimately, the board will decide either we will implement the plan and we feel that it's satisfactory and meets the needs of our community, or we will not implement the plan, but it will live with Garrett County Public Schools.
Thanks for the clarification. That's good news.
Yes, yes.
Other questions, concerns? I'd like to thank Mr. Green too for organizing all that for us, so
Yes.
that much easier to read and to decide. So thank you, Mark. Anything else? Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second to adopt the virtual learning day plan as presented. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Blueprint for Maryland's future, the committee structure, and I think Dr. Miller is presenting that as well.
Yes, so I am pleased to be able to continue to share with you that our blueprint work that has occurred over the last year is progressing nicely with the AIB and MSDE. We are still in the formal approval process, but we are very close and anticipate formal approval soon. We have looked at structuring this year a little bit differently than we have in the past because, as you know, last year we largely spent our time planning and preparing and gathering feedback from various stakeholders on writing the 3-year implementation plan that is supposed to span from fiscal 25 to fiscal 27. This year, we are really looking at shifting largely to our focus on implementing that plan that should be approved here shortly through the AIB. Because of that, we felt it was important to take a step back and look at our committee structure for how we're approaching this work. We will still have an executive blueprint committee made up of senior leadership in the school system, but also leaders around the community, specifically with our partner organizations. And that group will be meeting quarterly throughout this year, which is less frequent than in the past, but that's very intentional because we will be updating them on our implementation of what we wrote in our plan. There will still be 3 other focus areas, and they're aligned to the priorities that we talked about a few months ago. When we think about our strategic planning work, we're really focused on taking the 5 pillars of the blueprint and having priorities that cross-cut across all 5 of those pillars. So our priority areas are high-quality staffing to recruit and retain high-quality staff. Priority 2 is high-quality instruction and providing that to all of our students. And priority 3 is partnerships, fostering a collaboration between schools, community, and families. So within those 3 priorities, we will have some work groups and committees that will help us through the implementation process and also provide us feedback because it is a working, living process. That's important. For priority 1, that will look, out of all the 3 priorities, that will look the most similar to last year, and that is intentional as well. We will have a working group and an advisory group for that priority. The primary reason for that is that for that priority, there are still a number of items that have to be developed and written and submitted to the AIB. So we're still in that planning and writing stage for a component of that priority. And so we felt it to be advisable to have still that very strong working committee, advisory committee that will report to the executive committee. The other two priorities are much more further along as far as the implementation process. We're more focused on implementation, not as focused on writing the plan at this point. We are looking at using as many existing structures that we have in place already to help us facilitate that work. So for priority 2, we will be utilizing the lead team, which is the team of leaders that work directly under me. And then we have various working committees. One example would be our multi-tiered system of support committee that we've been working with over the summer and into this school year. And there will be other committees that will pull together as necessary that are focused on specific components of implementation. Another example under partnerships, there's a number of areas under partnerships that will have committees, but one example would be there's a group that is specifically working on our AP options for our students, for our post-CCR pathway. There are some committees that are working on our non-CCR pathway, individualized plans, and the work around that. We will likely have a group that is working with pre-K and our partners and Head Start. So again, we're trying to leverage things that are already existing in our structure and utilize that to help us operationalize our plan. I would extend to the board that if you are interested in participating in any of this work, to please reach out to me or Dr. McCartney, and we'll be glad to try to connect you with the area that you're interested in.
Questions, comments, concerns? Rodney?
Yes, Mrs. Miller, on the priority number 3, partnerships, is there a difference in what's going to be happening in the schools of poverty than in the other school system, or how is that going to work? So there's more money to do those type work in certain schools.
Yeah. So we have 5 schools that are identified at this time as community schools through the blueprint. There are specific action steps that have to take place at those schools in conjunction with the funding that they get. So certainly within that framework, there will be some things that look different. However, I would offer that all of our schools at the elementary level, and this is a change from last year, have been identified as Title I schools, and that program also very much elevates parent-school connection and partnerships. And so all of our schools will be able to leverage, all of our elementary schools will be able to leverage that program as well to support that work with partnerships.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
If it
Other
works for some
questions?
of the community schools, it might work for all of the schools, really. What works, whatever structure you put in place to actually get more parent and community involvement could work everywhere, I would think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I do want to, I know Dr. McCartney and I have been summoned to a mandatory meeting on the blueprint 23rd. I didn't
Yes.
realize you could demand somebody who's making gas money to do that, but I guess they can.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be in a blueprint meeting, I guess, on the 23rd for an hour and a half, a virtual meeting. And I do want to compliment both of you and commend both of you for the items that you sent to the legislative request that both of you, I'm sure, had a part in, explaining to the legislature the very difficult items that we have facing us and our very difficult ability to foresee in the future of us being able to do some of those things, because it is a daunting task that rural counties have a very difficult time doing. So thank you for,
That was a great
Letting them
response, I think. To
Pardon
those.
me?
It was a great response.
yeah, I thought the response was excellent.
You hit most of the issues that we've been talking about for the last couple of years.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, if I may add to that, and thank you very much for that positive input. As, and I wanted to be sure the board members who were, excuse me, attending MABE this week had that before we go to MABE. We will continue to work. Last year, we put together a legislative sort of memorandum that all of us could speak to and brought to the board. And we plan to do that same thing again this year. And this will, these questions came from the caucus, and we'll use much of that as we continue to develop our views.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how our responses correlate with some of the other jurisdictions in the state. Probably they have similar issues. We'll find.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Yep.
Appreciate it. We're going to move on to a couple other items, and we'll come back to public comment. Katie, do you want to go ahead and do your student member report for us?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so I have kind of quite a large report. There's a lot going on in the with the students. So as far as just the regular student reports, I want to take a minute to applaud all of our athletes, not just our athletes, but also our groups such as our robotics and our marching band. They have been busy and they have been doing phenomenally this year. To shout some people out, I would like to congratulate our golf teams. Both did very well at West Mac. Southern got first place and Northern got second. Southern Marching Band is currently ranked third in their Group 1 Open. Northern Marching Band placed second in this past week's competition. As far as athletics, Southern Soccer is a 7-1 record, so that is awesome. And then Northern High Volleyball just had a successful 3-game sweep. Northern High is also having their homecoming next week, and GACO recently traveled to New Jersey to participate in RoboCon. And I forgot to mention that Swan Meadow Harvest Sale happened last weekend, and I had the opportunity to attend that, and it just was a wonderful event of community togetherness, and I know that they did well. Student Council has a lot to report, so we had our second executive board meeting on September 24th, and our first GA will be on October 27th at the Performing Arts Center at Garrett College. We hope to launch a fundraiser in the coming days that will raise money for the council, and that is still to be decided. And luckily, all of our appointed officer positions are filled for this school year, and we are having our fall leadership conference for the Maryland Association of Student Councils in Hartford County on November 23rd, 2024. We are also looking at having a potential field trip downstate to learn more about the governmental process, and all councils except for Broadford have begun looking at their vaping grants to implement this into the school year. Now, as far as regular schools and what their councils are doing specifically, Broadford's 6th grade is working to achieve the group atmosphere for 6th graders as they will be designing activities around this. Students are also learning how the student council works, so they will be prepared at the high school level. And in Southern High School, we split our student council into two. So 7th and 8th grade has their own, and then 9th through 12th has their own. So as far as 7th and 8th grade, they haven't, right now they're working on just cleaning up the teacher's lounge in the hallway, and they are planning a fundraiser. And then 9th through 12th grade is planning homecoming. Also the day before, we are having a separate dance for 7th and 8th graders to attend. We are planning our Ram Rumble. We're working on our Christmas light show. We did Chalk the Walk, which welcomes students back for the first few weeks. We are planning our first of 3 blood drives to occur on October 21st. And then as far as Northern Middle School, they have teamed up with the Social Studies Department, and they have shared their campaign speeches for a school-wide election for 8th grade officers. And they are also collecting pop tabs for the Ronald McDonald House, and they're having a fundraiser for local charities. And then lastly, Northern High School, they recently launched a campaign for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and they passed out yellow cancer ribbons, and they had a theme for their football game on the 13th. They are also having a fundraiser themselves, and they are working hard on the morning news. And right now, they're also working on their bulletin board. And then, as far as my SMOB initiatives and my agenda, a few weeks ago, I had the privilege of meeting with Broadford Student Council in the morning to talk to them about the recent changes and how they are feeling. I got positive feedback, so I was very happy with that. And then I'm also working with Dr. McCartney with the Equity Advisory Committee to get student input on the school environment. And then I'm always just continuing to connect with the other student members across the state. So a large report, but that's what I have.
Questions, comments? Yeah, really very well done. Thank you so very much. Let me know when those Krispy Kremes go on sale. I gotta have some Krispy Kremes. That's my favorite. Okay, Superintendent, you want to do your report, and then we'll come back to public comment in case somebody is coming late.
I don't have a lot tonight, but a couple things that I want to announce to the public. Late last school year, we announced that we would be reviewing the possibility of a middle school interscholastic sports program. After some administrative review of the possibility, we have decided that we will not pursue this at this time. We will, of course, continue to support, as we have in the past, youth sports programs throughout the communities. The next item I just want to make people aware of, we will be hosting a visit by the State Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carrie Wright, along with the State Board President and Vice President. They will be visiting the county on October the 16th, and we will be visiting some classrooms at Route 40 Elementary School and Northern Garrett High School. They are interested in seeing some of our programs related to the blueprint and its implementation. Mr. Woods had mentioned earlier that our announcements can be found online, but there were a couple dates that I'll take just a moment to remind people of. On October the 10th, we will have a 3-hour early dismissal for our students to provide time for staff development in our schools. October 11th, schools are closed because that is our Autumn Glory Festival Day, at least one of the days of the Autumn Glory Festival. The next thing I would want to remind people of, our parents in our community, is that schools will be closed on November the 5th because that is Election Day. And some of our schools are used as polling places, so therefore schools will be closed that day. That's all I have, Mr. Woods.
Any questions or comments for Dr. McCartney? Okay, did anyone sign up to speak? Yeah, but no, I'll do it before I call her. Yeah, I was going to also talk to him about signing up. I guess we should do board member updates as well. Anybody, any board member updates that anyone wants to speak to? Okay.
I just wanted to thank Dr. McCartney for arranging the visit to the Southern High School. I just wanted to wrap my head around what the new renovations look like, and I was pretty impressed in the way that the new students were integrated too, so I have a better understanding of that.
Thank you.
Anything else, anyone? Would also remind board members, you did get in your packet the committee assignments. I know Mr. Moore has not signed up for any, and certainly I'll be talking to Mr. Moore about that in terms of which ones he might want to serve on. And if any of you want to make a change or something, certainly let us know. And now we'll get to it. Jess Brown wants to speak about Accident Elementary. Yes, but I don't have it in front of me. Can you pull it up? I didn't bring mine. Yes, it is here. I'm sorry, I didn't do my, I gotta read this disclaimer first. Garrett County Board of Education is pleased to receive comments and ideas from the public pertaining to the policies, procedures, and/or practices of the school system. We ask that comments be limited to a maximum time of 3 minutes per individual unless otherwise considered by the board president. There will be no discussion or action taken at the meeting, but may be considered at future meetings. Issues that are specific to individual employees should be referred to the immediate supervisor for appropriate consideration and review. Rude, slanderous, or threatening remarks or other behavior that is disruptive or interferes with the topic of the meeting will not be permitted. Topics excluded from the public comment include individual personnel issues, comments identifying individual students or staff members, matters that are under appeal or may be appealed or have been appealed, topics but for which the board schedules formal public hearings, and advertising or solicitation for products and or services. With that being said, now please, Jess Brown.
All right, so I don't have anything formal written, so we're gonna pop around. But first, I really wanted to just thank the community. Axon Elementary just wrapped up 2 different fundraisers this past week with doing a hog raffle and our very first Mum and Pumpkin sale. We sold out of mums very early, and so I want to just thank the whole community and everybody that did come out and support us. I also want everyone to know that our annual Fall Fun Festival is coming up on October 25th. So that is open to the full community. We will have all kinds of activities for the kiddos. It's $5 for children ages 2 through 17. We'll have a cakewalk, hayride, pumpkin patch, all the fun things. So, and of course a silent auction, as that is our main fundraiser for the year. So also I want to just touch on, as in last meeting at the board meeting, we talked about the possibility of having a relocation of Axon Elementary School to Northern Middle School. So pulling at our heartstrings a little bit there, and I did have the privilege to speak with Dr. McCartney a few minutes about that. And something that we talked about was, well, what is the heart of Axon Elementary? You know, I know a building is a building. And so I really took some time to dive into what I think as a parent, as a PTO representative, and someone that is in and out of that school very frequently, whether it's helping out in the classroom, doing some help with the teachers, whatnot. I truly believe the staff and the leadership makes a lot of what Accident is today. But another part that is at that school is our schoolyard, as there has been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that has been put into that at the school. And it is truly amazing whenever I pull in every day to take my kids to school and I see their handprints on that barn. So that is something that I would like you guys all to keep in mind if this is something that is going to go forward, that we try our very hardest to get that barn, to get the schoolyard, everything at wherever we're going to go. Because the opportunities the schoolyard has presented our children in regards to science and math, being outside, our 5th graders are solely taking care of the animals, figuring out how to budget how much money we need to feed our lambs. And that program, we just want to keep growing. All of the trees that our kids planted in the arboretum, the walking trail. I mean, obviously we can't take the trees and things like that. That's probably not going to, I don't know, dig up all the trees and replant. That's something, but just know that there is a lot of heart in that school at that location. And just some disruption. I mean, I'm proud of the students and our teachers from looking at the scores that was presented last month and diving in at what Axon Elementary actually performed at their grade level. They were at the top of our county and for elementary schools, and the top in most of all the subjects. So I really hate the idea of seeing that disruption and seeing what really a pre-K 3 through 7th grade building model would look like, plus having an additional duty center and all of the stars and all of the ALO on the northern campus. So, whereas in the concern for that is our safety. As we know, there's been a lot of scares going around across nationwide, and there's only one way in and one way out at Northern Complex. And so to add an additional 300 plus kids, students, parents, or teachers at the back middle school, a crisis were to happen at Northern High, we're stuck. Still today, if a crisis were to happen tomorrow at Northern High, our middle school is stuck without an exit plan. So I do encourage the board and maintenance to kind of still evaluate what is another exit route out of the Northern Complex. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. That concludes our business for this evening. That being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Jason,
Second.
seconded by Sadie. All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay, and we are adjourned.